Everybody, welcome to Morning Joe Devo. If you have ever experienced a faith journey where there's been ups and downs, peaks and valleys, then you're definitely going to want to stick around because I have a very special guest, a very dear, close friend of mine. I would consider him a brother from another mother.
Absolutely.
Yeah, you definitely gonna want to bring that in a little bit closer. Someone that I've known for a very long time, grown together. We've done a lot of ministering together, been there for each other through some of the trials and tribulations of our own lives. So I am very excited to welcome my good friend, Steve Forte.
Thanks, man.
Yeah, man. Thanks for being here and being a part of Team Morning Joe Devo. So for those of you who don't know, Morning Joe Devo is your beacon to inspire, motivate, and connect you to Jesus. And what better way to connect you to Jesus than to hear the faith journey of someone else who has been through, I would say, a lot of things in your lifetime. I'll just share briefly how we met and how we got to know each other, which was, I believe I was a youth leader at a particular church, and you happened to be one of those youths who was not quite like a youth. You were more like,
A little older youth.
yeah, you were definitely,
My cousin Vinny H. Youth.
yeah, you were definitely starting to hit that adulthood peak of your life. So, yeah, so that's how like we kind of met, and then we just developed a relationship, and our relationship is kind of like weaved in, in and out in different times and seasons because we've known each other since what, 1998-ish, I feel like.
Probably.
99, yeah, right before the turn of the 2000s.
Y2K.
Y2K, good old Y2K.
When everything shut down on us and the whole world went chaotic.
Everything would shut down, yes, and go dark, and thankfully it never did.
It never happened, thank God.
So yeah, with that, why don't we kind of just dive into, Steve, just like your faith journey, just your journey of how you came to Christ, and just different what made him real for you, and we'll just kind of start from there and just go along and see where it takes us.
Okay. All right. Well, first I'll say thanks, Mark, for even having me on and having a conversation with me. I definitely love God and believe in hoping, or I hope to inspire people like to live for God, because he really is amazing. Since you mentioned the church that we used to go to and you being a leader there, it reminds me of like when I came out of the world and stuff that I used to do, and I'll go into that in a minute. When I came out of that stuff, I started spending a lot of time with God in prayer and reading the word and just studying like a lot, because I wasn't working at the time. I was only like 19 years old. And some of the people that were at that first church that I started going to really reminded me of how God treats people, or how I feel like God treated me. And you were one of those people, you and your wife at the time, like, and some of the other people really treated me like I felt like God treats people. And that's what like drew me to you, and some of the other people that were at the church. So I've always appreciated you for that. I still remember the birthday giant cookie that you guys gave me.
Yeah, there was selfish motive behind that. It's because I really like cookie cakes.
That's
I'm
cool.
kidding. I'm kidding.
I had never had one, but
No.
it was amazing, and nobody had ever did that. So
I'm kidding,
really
of course, because I just happened to reap the benefit of of having the cookie cake. But yeah, it was definitely done out of love, and
Yeah.
of course, that's why we did what we did, because we loved what we were doing, and we loved the people that we were doing that with.
Yeah.
So definitely go ahead. I don't want to
All right.
interrupt you there, but
Now there was another situation that happened like around that time too with some of the other people that were at that church where there was an event that was going on and everybody made me feel so special and so welcome that I thought I could just come too. And I got there and they were like, "Whoa, what are you doing here? You weren't invited." And I was, "Oh, oh, okay. I guess I won't come back."
oh,
But I didn't stop going to the church. I
uh-huh.
just didn't hang out with those people because I felt like I wasn't welcome. But so I definitely always felt welcome when it came to you guys. So
Cool.
about my story, so I was raised in a church. My dad and mom got divorced when I was young, and but I always had a relationship with my dad. Actually, myself and my siblings wound up being raised by my dad after after the divorce was settled and everything like that. And so I got to see my dad come out of a divorce and probably go through what I know now to be depression.
Mm.
And it took him through a whirlwind where he had a bunch of different girlfriends and things like that. And he was supposed to be like he was a preacher at the time.
Mm.
So he wouldn't preach much, but once in a while he would preach at a church or something like that. And he would explain to me about who God was. But he told me who God was when I was like very young, like maybe 5 years old or something.
Okay.
And he explained to me one day in the car while we were driving, because I would always go with him when he would preach somewhere. He explained to me what the anointing is. He said, when I'm up there and you see me sweating and you see that he normally would stutter. Like every conversation he had, he would like, and people would try to help him out with his stuttering, and he would just like like right shift and say a different word than he was trying to say at first. And we'd always laugh about it. But whenever he would preach, like I knew it was the power of God because when he would preach, he would not stutter at all. And all of his friends and family members and anybody that knew him knew that God was real because the supernatural happened every time this man would stand up to preach.
Okay.
Right. So he explained to me who God is. He told me that when I was like 5 years old, that God is my father, that Daryl is the man who God allowed to father me on earth so that he could show me how to get back to God. So going from that into my teenage years, I started hanging out with friends and we would smoke weed and drink and party with the girls and everything like that. And I thought I took on a different identity at that point.
Okay.
And I started saying, yeah, like Diddy and Mace and all of them said, I know I can't say Diddy now, no Diddy. But yeah. So like they used to say, I'm a die high. So that was like our mantra. Like we walked around like listening to Biggie all the time. It was East Coast versus West Coast beef during that time. And of course I'm from Jersey, so of course I'm East Coast.
Yeah.
Of course I'm Biggie, not Tupac. Like, hey, it is what it is.
Or you could have been like me, who took both sides.
Yeah, no.
Couldn't help it. I just happen to like both of them. But anyway.
Yeah. All right. So I was straight East Coast, like 10 crack commandments and all that stuff. That was my mantra, like me and my friends. But then one day my dad invited me out to a men's fellowship. And right before he invited me out to the men's fellowship, he asked me a question on his couch one day. And now I call it the crying couch. Because I thought it was just me. But I would sit on his couch and I would talk to my dad and my stepmom. And he asked me a question one day. He's like, why are you running from God? And I couldn't answer it. And I just sat there and I just started crying and crying and crying and crying and crying and crying for like an hour. And I didn't know why I was crying. I'm like 18 years old at the time. And I had just got a bunch of money from a settlement from a car accident when I was a kid. So all I wanted to do was drive around with my friends and buy clothes and shoes and get high and just chill and hang out and party. But then when he asked me that question, like I said, I couldn't figure it out. Like, why was I running from God? And that thing just haunted me. until the day that we were at the men's fellowship, and my old pastor, Pastor Lamont McLean, he was preaching. Well, he was teaching. He was teaching about the presence of God, and he said, "Everybody, go over in the corner, find a corner, and spend time with God and talk to God." Now, up to that point, it was like from 18 to 19, like my life had just like it was just a spiral. Like I was doing the same thing every morning. I would wake up and like focus on just going to hang with friends and getting some weed and smoking, and it was going nowhere. And all of my friends seemed to, every time we were out, like we would get pulled over by the cops and somebody would get arrested, or at one point it was like we get pulled over and the only person that gets pulled out the car is me.
Mm.
And these are all black kids, so it was not like it was racial profiling on that side for them to just pull me out the car. And one of my
It
friends,
was Steve filing.
it was really God.
Yeah.
And I didn't realize it at the time until one of my friends asked me. He's like, "Yo, why the heck do we keep getting pulled over like every time we go out?" I said, "Because I'm like Jonah,
Mm.
and because I'm just not listening to God." And it's like, pretty much, if y'all want to stop getting pulled over, just kick me out the car and it'll stop.
Right.
So shortly after that, it was at the men's fellowship, I'm standing there and I'm praying, and I got my eyes closed. I'm doing exactly what the pastor said. Eyes closed, hands up, like, all right, God, like I want something different. Like, I don't want to keep living this life the same way that I was living. And I remember not lifting my feet up and facing the wall, facing the corner, like the pastor said, and I was rocking back and forth while I was praying.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember opening my eyes and my whole body was facing the other direction. I was like, whoa, wait, how did that happen? I never lifted my feet up.
Right. Mm.
Now, of course, anybody else that hears this, you may think that, nah, you probably like was picking up your feet, moving them. What? No, I was like 19 years old. I know how to move my feet. I was not high. I had no weed. I had no cigarettes, no alcohol for that whole week. Actually, I had cigarettes with me that I couldn't get out to the car to smoke. And all I wanted to do the whole time I was there was get out to the car to smoke. So I didn't even have nicotine in me at that moment. And my feet were facing the other direction, and I knew it had to be God. Something else that happened during that time that I was there was I had an earache, and it was hurting like crazy. Like, and I was like, yo, what am I supposed to do? I don't know what to do. So I asked the pastor after his session to pray for me, or after one of his sessions to pray for me. And he got some oil, and I thought it was like sweet, like the sweet oil that my grandma used to stick in my ear and tell me hold my hair like this and put a piece of cotton in there so it gets in there while you're sleeping or something like that. But it wasn't. He ain't put it in my ear.
It was in eardrops.
Nah, it wasn't eardrops.
No.
He took some oil, he put it on my head, on his hand, and smacked my head.
Smacked you
Yeah, smacked me around a little bit.
right on the forehead.
Yeah, right on the forehead. And he said, sickness, go. He said, earache, go. And then he told me that God had a plan for me, and that God ordained me before I was in my mother's womb. And I said, but what about my friends? Because I grew up with my friends and we were all like supposed to like hang out together forever. And he said, God's not worried about your friends. He said, God saved you. He called you before the foundation of the world to be his man in the earth. And I cried. Like, man, I don't know how I'm going to live this life without these friends of mine. They're like my brothers. You know, my dad always said, they're just your friends. Like, once you get grown, they're not going to be there anymore. I didn't believe it. I couldn't believe nothing my dad said. He's old.
Yeah, well, that's typical dad talk. I mean, you ain't a dad unless you happen to mention that, you know, like my dad would talk about, you either are a leader or a follower. Which one are you? Are you going to lead people or are you going to follow people? So I know, you know, those are just those dad moments, and dad talking twos. You look back on it and then you're like, yeah, all right, you know, I get it. but in the moment you're just like, whatever, you don't know me, like you don't know what I'm going
Right.
through, you don't know my struggle.
Like, dads don't know nothing. Dads
Yeah.
could never be right.
Yeah.
You're just a dad. What do you know?
Yeah, and then you fast forward 20 years and then you're like, oh, okay, that makes sense.
Yeah, 90% of the stuff that he said, he was right.
Yeah.
Maybe more than 90.
So so basically you're kind of spoken to, given the good talking that you needed to get, not just from your dad, but from this individual,
Yeah, the pastor.
this pastor. Yeah. And so then what starts to, what changes your life at that moment? Did you start experiencing different life changes, or was it something that, yeah, you heard it, but kind of like Jonah, you just kind of went on doing what you wanted to do?
So I didn't know, honestly, I didn't know what to expect from that moment. I just knew that something happened when I prayed, and something happened when the pastor prayed for me, and the earache left instantly. Like, as soon as he got done saying go, it was gone. He asked me too. He said, is it still there? I said, hold on. I shook my head. No. And I looked just like that, like, no, I think it's gone.
Yeah.
So it was amazing. So then I got back home and I told my friend Daryl, I said, yo, I'm not smoking no more weed. Like, I'm done. I'm not smoking no more. I'm not drinking no more. I just hung out with like my dad for the week, and I'm gonna live for God now. And he was like, all right, cool. Well, I'm gonna come outside and I'm gonna smoke this blunt. But you don't gotta smoke it because I know you're not smoking, and I want you to do the right thing. And then we went to see some other friends, and by the end of the day, I had smoked some weed. Like, dang it. I messed up.
You're like, all right, maybe I'll start tomorrow.
No, I was like, darn, I messed up. I don't know how I'm going to do this. What it wound up happening was, from that moment, I made a decision to not smoke and not drink and stuff. So, I mean, I still smoked for a while. And then what I would do is I would take the bags and I would like throw them out. And then I noticed what I would do is if they were in the trash, like once I was in my regular mind again, I went back to the trash and pulled them out and smoked them. I was like, it's still good. So then I got more courage and I started throwing them down the toilet and flushing them. And then I was good with that. And then eventually it stuck and I was able to not smoke. But this one day I was coming back from Philly and we were listening to Big Pun, Capital Punishment album, like in the back of my buddy's Mazda Protege. And like we're coming back, we're smoking. We got like, I think it's like 3 of us in there smoke. Like 2 in the front, 1 in the back, and each one of us has a blunt lit. And we're smoking it. The whole car is smoked out. And as soon as we get back over the bridge, I start hearing a voice. Most people would say, yo, you was high as crap, Steve. But it wasn't a high voice. I was looking up at the moon.
And you heard Fred Hammond?
Nope.
No. Okay.
I heard my own voice.
Interesting.
Say, while I was looking at this one part of the moon, say, seek first the kingdom of God. I was like, huh. And I looked up at my buddy in the front seat, and I was like, how come he doesn't hear this? And the music was blaring loud. Like, we listened to it, like, super loud, because that's what we did. We're kids.
Right.
How does he not hear it? How does his girlfriend not hear it? How am I the only one that hears his voice? And then I looked up at the moon still, and then I saw the moon transition, or something happened, my vision transitioned, and I saw the rest of the moon from looking at just a crescent of the moon, and I heard, and all these other things will be added. And I was like, it amazed me, because I was like, yo, how'd that happen? How did I not see that? And now I see it. But even more important, how is God talking to me? Why would he choose to talk to me? Especially while I'm smoking weed right now. While I'm doing wrong right now. I'm trying to live my best life, my party life, and do whatever I want to do. and he chooses to talk to me.
Mm.
And actually, my thought pattern was, I said, wouldn't it be more valuable for him to raise a dog from the dead than to come talk to me?
Mm.
And I didn't realize it at the time, but it just shows how low I thought of myself.
Mm.
I thought that I was lower than a dog in God's eyes. But God loved me so much that he decided to, I don't know if he stops what he does or if he keeps doing multiple things or however he does it, but he decided that I was important enough for him to take out time and talk to me about the plans that I had in life, because I had plans that I was going to take this money that I got when I turned 18 and I was going to start this huge like drug selling conglomerate, and all my friends were going to work for me, and I had wrote it all out on paper, and I drew out the house that I was going to live in and everything.
Mm.
And that's the thought that was in my mind when he said, no, don't do that. Seek my kingdom.
Mm.
And I'll give you the things that you want.
Yeah, like isn't that the interesting thing about God? And I think a lot of people have this preconceived conception that, some people I think struggle with the idea that God speaks to them, right? And people may say, oh, well, does he speak to you in an audible voice and this, that, and the other? And I think the reality of it is whether it's audible or not, you hear something, you feel something that is contrary to the direction that your life is going in,
Right.
and your thought process.
Right.
So, when you're experiencing those types of things in your life, it's amazing because it speaks volumes about how awesome God is, because we try to get so wrapped up in living a life that is perfect, that way we don't make mistakes,
Right.
that the only way that we get close to God is by doing a list of all the right things. But sometimes it's in those moments when we're the furthest away from him that we're actually the closest to him, because he's really trying to get our attention. Now, I'm not by any way saying like, hey, go out and have a great time and live it up just so you get closer to God. But it's, the awesome thing about what you're saying is that even in your lowest moments, where you were feeling maybe a level of inadequacy and really trying to find your place and your footing in the world, God was persistent enough to stick with you, to even speak to you through those moments where you're trying so hard to drown so many things out with weed, alcohol, and cigarettes. So that's something that I just I picked up on what you were sharing, is that that's like amazing that, God was speaking to you, in that moment.
Yeah. It's crazy too. So now that we're talking about that part. So what I used to do is if I went to church, I was the guy that I didn't leave my weed at home. I didn't leave my blunts at home, my cigarettes at home, even at that age. And somebody came up to me one day at a little church.
And it wasn't me, because there were some moments when I saw you and I was like, is he all right?
No, it wasn't Mark. And by then by the time I met you, I had totally stopped everything and I didn't smoke or drink anything.
Okay. So it was still like a little bit of the resin that was.
Oh yeah, I had residue. I had a lot of residue. I still wake up sometimes thinking, maybe I got residue still. No, I don't. But no, I was at this little church down the street from my house, and one of the young guys there, he was upset because he found out that I had a blunt in my pocket and that I might have smoked, and he said that it's disrespectful to God. And I said, no, I'm not doing it because I'm disrespecting God. I'm doing it because I know it's wrong, but I'm still coming to church because I believe that God is powerful enough that maybe one day if I come in church, he'll convict me or he'll help me change what I'm doing.
Yeah.
And he didn't even wait for me to come into church. He got me in the car when I was high by myself. I was all by myself doing my own thing. And he's like, all right, if you'll come to me like that, I'll come to you like this.
Yeah. Yeah. That's the powerful thing, is God meets you where you are.
Yeah.
And to your point, I think as believers, we do a disservice when we expect people to come into a church, that's like going to a hospital when you're well.
Right.
You know, you don't go to the hospital because you feel good. You go to the hospital because you're in need of healing. You're in need of fixing. And the same thing with, with the church. It's like that's the place that you're supposed to go to, where you're supposed to find
Right.
the closest thing to Jesus.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I agree with you on that. Like, yeah, it's great that you were at least making the attempt, to be a part, be a part of, the church, just to hear the message, because, at that time, you didn't have podcasts.
No.
You know what I mean? You didn't have the liberty to be able to just kind of listen to whatever you wanted in the moment.
Right.
We're talking still days of the CD player and things.
Exactly. Cassette player. Yeah, exactly. Like, I had the Walkman with the headphones, and I bought Cross Movement, and I bought Yolanda Adams, and I put them on in my ears.
You got what you could get. So, so then during this interaction that you had, which some would probably consider a very unique experience.
Yeah, definitely.
What began to unfold for you on your faith journey? What started to change?
So, I mean, I'm still in that same time period within that first month of me, or first couple months of me coming back from that men's fellowship or men's retreat that I went on with my dad. Mm-hmm. And the one day I was now I remember I grew up in church, so I had heard a lot of the stories of the Bible, seen a lot of things from the Bible, and always went with my dad when he was preaching somewhere.
Okay.
So one day I was at my brother's house, and he lived down the street from my house, and nobody was there. It was just me in the house, which was weird because it never happened. But it was like a totally dark, weird night there. Now, I used to sell drugs at the time. Okay. So once in a while, am I allowed to say crackhead?
I guess, well, you just said it. So,
right. Well, once in a while, crackheads used to come and knock on a door or knock on a window. And because they were trying to get something. But, of course, Biggie said in 10 Crack Commandments, never sell no crack where you rest at. I don't care if they want an ounce, tell them bounce.
Okay.
So I laid down in my brother's room, laid on the bed, and it's like abnormally dark. There's no moon in the sky. There's no street lights on. It's super dark. And in the room, it seemed extra, extra dark too. And I hear a knock. And so it's a normal custom. Like if you're upstairs and somebody knocks on the door, you look out the window. Here. Yeah, who that? Well, nobody answers. I lay down again, and I hear a knock again. So this time, I walk out on the roof because the window opens up to the roof. So I walk out on the roof, and I look around. Yo, who's out there? There's nobody there again. I'm like, what the heck? Third time. So I get up, and I go downstairs, and I go outside, and I walk out to the street. And I'm looking all around like, what the heck is going on? Who's playing with me? Who's knocking on the door and running away or something? So then I remember the story of Samuel when he got called by God.
Okay.
And when I went to lay down, I didn't have an Eli there. When I went to lay down, I remembered that story, and I heard the knock again. But it came from inside of the pillow when my head was on it. Now, I had fallen asleep.
Okay.
And I had woke up. I heard a knock coming through the pillow, through the bed. I was like, and so I woke up and I said, yes, Lord. Oh, what do you want? And I had a whole crazy experience that night, right? I was already filled with the Holy Ghost. I don't know if you talk about tongues on here or not, but hey, so I was already filled with the Holy Ghost. And when God, when he started talking to me, I was like, all right, God, I want to see you. But I had my eyes closed, and it was like this. Remember I talked about how dark it was, like like dark,
Mm-hmm.
like like I've never seen dark like this before, dark.
Mm-hmm.
And with my eyes closed, it was like this bright light like this, brighter than that, brighter
Mm-hmm.
than the light that you guys can't see on the screen, but brighter than that.
Mm-hmm.
Like you're looking up at the sun.
Okay.
Like, and you can see the yellow, like when you close your eyes, and you see the red coming through the yellow from the sun so bright. That's
Right.
how bright it was that filled this dark room.
Okay.
And and it was so powerful that it took all the breath out of my lungs. And I was like, and I'm sorry, but
Yeah. It was a real moment, right?
yeah,
It's like one of those moments that sometimes you can't always articulate and explain, but it's real. It's real to you, and um,
Mm.
yeah. So I definitely get that, man. Like I for sure I haven't gone into kind of my faith journey yet because I feel like my journey has been like a crazy one, like a up and down and winding around and around, and so there are definitely those but God moments. I'd like to say, because you probably heard that before, but
yeah,
it's only moments that you can just say, you know what, I don't care what anybody else really thinks, but I can only explain my experience,
right,
and it's a but God moment um for my life.
yeah,
So that's totally okay. You know what I
yeah,
mean? So um all right. So you had clearly this experience,
yeah,
you know.
like a real supernatural experience with God, where, like I said, like I asked God to see him. He came in the room, and it was so powerful that it like took the breath out of my lungs.
Mm,
And I feel like I didn't breathe for like minutes, but I didn't die.
mm-hmm.
And I mean, that's the only way I can really explain it. It was
Yeah.
like, and I mean, it was so, whatever came in that room was so powerful that I was scared to open my eyes and see it.
Mm. But you asked for it.
I asked for it.
You asked
I
for
wasn't
it.
that crazy.
That's why we try to be mindful of the things that we ask.
No,
No,
I see ask for it anyway.
yeah,
And
yeah,
just believe it. Like, I mean, I didn't know enough to not ask.
sure.
All I knew was, hey, I've seen you do a few things, and you must be real. So why can I not see you?
Yeah.
Man, I won't ask that again.
So I'm assuming then that was the pivotal moment in your life where you, I guess, just decided from then on you're just like, all right, I'm moving on from this. I'm no longer looking back. I'm making the final decision to press on and to move forward from here on out. Not saying that you weren't perfect or anything of that nature, but would you say that was kind of like the defining moment in your life where you're like, all right, God, I hear you. um I see you. I see what you're doing. I get it now. I'm all in.
Yeah, I feel like I made that decision before that, and then like I just kept falling and kept coming back to God, and fall and come back and fall and come back, and eventually, like I said, I mean, sanctification doesn't happen overnight.
Right.
It seems like it's something that, I mean, just like getting free from almost any addiction,
Mm-hmm.
like you have to work at it. You have to work the steps.
Yeah.
I had to read the Bible, had to pray, had to fall and come back and say, I'm sorry, I didn't
Mm-hmm.
mean to do it.
Mm-hmm.
Like, help me get it right. Show me how to get it right. Like, I had an experience where I was at my buddy's house, and we were all like hanging out over there, and that's when I had stopped smoking and
Mm-hmm.
stuff. And but then I would still battle, and I called my dad one day and I said, Dad, like, I'm trying to stop, and it seems like it's so hard. He said, well, son, he said, the word says that evil company corrupts good morals. So you can want to do everything right, but it's like the big book says, you have to change people, places, and things. He didn't say those words. He
Mm-hmm.
said, you have to stop hanging out with the same friends, because if you keep doing the same things, you'll keep getting the same results. Like
Yeah.
you said off camera earlier, you
Mm-hmm.
keep doing what you've always done, you'll always get what you've always got.
Mm-hmm.
And I literally walked home that day, and I left my buddy's house. And before I left his house, he actually stopped me. He was like, yo, what's wrong with you, bro? He's like, you look like you just lost your best friend.
Mm.
I said, man, I can't even talk about it, bro. And I literally walked out of his house, and I walked back to my house, and I sat on my porch, and I cried the whole way home,
Mm.
because I knew I was going to have to let go of my friends in
Mm.
order to chase after God.
Mm.
But one thing God told me that day, sitting on my porch, he said, I'm going to give you friends
Mm.
that love me like you do. So that's why.
Mm.
I know it seems like, well, I don't know what it seems like. It probably seems like such a simple story. Like, all right, you had friends, and now you didn't have friends because you had to serve God. But that's why meeting Mark and Brian.
Mm. Well, I'm, not to interrupt you or anything, but hearing how like it seems like what was going to be a loss turned around to, hopefully be a positive and a gain, and
Yeah.
hey man, I was just a guy who loved God in the moment and was trying to sift through and work through his own messes and
Of course.
insecurities.
Of course.
And yeah, I guess it just kind of speaks to the power of relationship, relationship one with God and relationship with others. A lot of times, we don't really think about the impacts that we have on people, and us just being present, just being our own genuine, authentic selves in those moments. I think we sometimes take that for granted, and I was raised to kind of live my life to be there for people, regardless of the demographic or wherever they're from.
Right.
I was raised that you love people because the Bible tells us to love one another, to encourage one another, to support one another. So yeah, like to kind of segue, I guess, a little bit into that transition of that time in your life. Like something that's always been valuable to me is relationship.
Yeah.
Just having relationships with people, just being there for people.
Mm-hmm.
So you kind of you thought you lost some friends, but
Yeah.
you realized that you were actually gaining some other people that, I may be a little biased in saying this, but they were pretty cool. So
I think
they
so.
they were fit to the mold to understand
Mm-hmm.
where Steve was,
Yeah.
and Steve's unique personality
Right.
at that time.
Right.
You still have a unique personality, by the way, but I'm just saying, I know at that time you, from what I remember, is that you always had a very just unique perspective on things, and you saw things differently that most people didn't necessarily see. So I always appreciated, I appreciated that perspective and that view that you had.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, it's like I said. I mean, I guess, I mean, we never talked about this, so
Yeah.
you had no clue what you were stepping into today. And I never even thought it through like I am now. And that's why
Mhm.
it's like reminding me of just God's faithfulness,
Yeah.
where he promised and he fulfilled it. And that's why we've been friends so long, because
Yeah.
of God's faithfulness, not my faithfulness, not
Mm-hmm.
your faithfulness, but just because God said, I'll give you friends that love me,
Yeah.
you know? So yeah, that's where the transition really happened, where when I was literally like spending that, I just decided and started spending that time with God and praying and things like that, and had made the decision to live for him no matter what,
Mm.
you know.
So then after this, right, from what I remember, you decided to kind of follow suit, and I guess you've kind of always had a passion for ministry and music.
Mm-hmm.
Um, you and I don't know if we've ever did anything specifically together music wise, but we were always kind of in the same realm and arena
Right.
of doing music. Me doing, both of us having an appreciation for hip hop music,
Mm-hmm.
and
Right.
you know, coming from that world. Um, so I know that I've, if there's anything that I've known of you, is always been your evangelistic heart and your passion for the lost,
Right.
which I credit you, because I personally, I'm more geared towards the believer and really trying to help mend the brokenness of believers because of my own experiences of just experiencing church hurt and things of that nature, and,
Right.
and issues that I've had with spiritual leaders and things of that nature. And I've kind of seen the effects of how it plays in the church. So my heart's always been that individual, where your heart has always been that person that's just like, yo, man, I know about God, and maybe I don't really want to have anything to do with him, but
Yeah.
I know that you eventually went on to a school to kind of further and enhance, I guess, your knowledge of the word and things of that nature. So I don't know if you want to kind of just share about that a little bit. You don't have to maybe go into detail where it was,
Okay.
unless you really want to. But if you want to kind of, during that experience, like what did you experience in that time, in that season of just kind of maybe getting a little academic and gaining some education, but also gaining some other life experiences, right? Like I think you were doing a lot more music at that time. So
I was. Yeah.
I don't know if you want to kind of just talk about that a little bit and share that,
All right.
and how maybe that kind of has helped you, lead you up to kind of like where you are today.
All right. Yeah. So, yeah, I went to a conference with my pastor at the time, and the conference that we went to, they had a college
Okay.
out there. And I saw when I went there to check it out that they had a huge concentration on evangelism and
Okay.
outreach. And so I was like, man, well, I was looking at some of the schools out here, but most of them weren't spirit filled. And like I said, I was already spirit filled. I already had the experience of hearing God's voice, hearing God talk to me and lead me and guide me and do the supernatural and see people get healed, see myself get healed. So to go to a school where they didn't teach about those things wasn't going to work for me. And all
Okay.
the schools that I looked at out here, they taught against the filling of the Holy Ghost, tongues and things like that. So it
Okay.
didn't make sense to go to one of those. So I went to the school. I decided to go, and I prayed about it. I didn't have any money. I was working, but I was working to pay bills, so I didn't have any money saved up.
Right.
And I prayed about
Because you
it.
spent all that extra money that you had on other things.
Yeah,
So that
way
was gone.
before. Yeah, all
So
that
your
money.
business model fell apart,
Oh yeah.
which was probably for a reason. So.
Yeah, that all fell apart, and I wasted all that money. Like it was such a good fun time, but such a waste of life.
Yeah. So
Well, I
it's,
guess I can't say waste of life because it was worth the experience to never go back.
yeah. So it was kind of like the prodigal, your version of being the prodigal son,
Yeah.
kind of.
Kind of. So yeah, so I decided to go, and I prayed about it, asked God when I should go, and I'm glad I did that because God told me when to go, and what semester I should start in. And so then I talked to my dad about it, and he said, no, you should go on this date instead. And because of what he said was contrary to what I heard God say, I trusted God. Because remember, my dad, or like I said earlier, my dad told me that God is my father and that he was positioned in my life to train me to get to God. So even if I was wrong, I was willing to base my bets on God.
Right.
Like, even if it had conflict with my dad, and it did cause conflict with my dad, but even not having the money, God set it up where I had the money to go, I had a place to stay, I had transportation to get there, and everything lined up for me to go to the school.
Okay.
And I mean, being there, I mean, it was a amazing experience. I got to meet not just a Mark, but I got to meet a ton of people in my age group from around the world that all love God.
Cool.
That were focused on God, that decided to go to school, to focus on God, to love God, to do evangelism or pastoring and stuff like that. And I'm still connected with them now. Like when I was in Nassau, Bahamas, a couple years ago, I texted one of my friends from Bible college, like, hey, I know you're from the Bahamas. Are you close to Nassau? He's like, yeah, I'm actually in Nassau.
Oh.
I actually work right down the street from the port that you're going to be getting off on.
Okay.
If you want to come hang out, just come on over. He told me exactly where to go. I get off the ship. I walk to where he's at, and he takes me in his car. He's got this beautiful Jaguar, and he takes me on a tour of Nassau. Like, and I mean, I would never had that kind of experience if it wasn't for being with him.
Yeah.
And I mean, that experience, even going overseas and where the music's concerned, I had started doing music. And one of the first times I ever rapped in front of people was at the Bible college. So the first day, it was a variety show, and I didn't make it. Like, I tried out, I didn't make it in a variety show, but they said, you know what? We were talking, and the judges, we were talking, and we liked what you did. We can't put it in a variety show, but we need an opening act. So we can have you do the opening act. And it was like maybe 500 people there, 600 people, something like that. So my first time rapping was like 600 people there.
Okay.
They said that they liked the variety show so much from everything that the students did that they wanted to do it at the church. And there was like 5,000 people there the very next day. So my first 2 times rapping, I get in front of like 5,500 people, and they got lights and cameras, and the music's just like, I'm like, oh, that sounds so sick. So I was addicted to, I got addicted to doing music for a while.
Yeah. See, and you were fortunate because my first experience in that was at a pool hall. It was a Christian pool hall, and yeah, it was just like people from kind of like all over the area. So there was maybe 20, 25 people.
Okay.
So I was kept to stay very humble early on, and I had to learn to evolve to bigger, larger crowds. So that's where God really taught me not to focus on numbers.
Yeah. So all right. So let me get to this one. So that's interesting that you say that about the humble thing. So we're doing an evangelism or outreach one day. We're in Dayton, Ohio, like right outside of Cincinnati. And there's like 10,000 people there. So me and one of my friends, like my friend Rachel, she comes up to me, hey, Steven, there's like, because we were giving away food and blankets and stuff like that too. We had like trucks and trucks of food like to give out. So she was like, Steven, there's like 1,000 people standing there in the line for the food. They're not hearing the message. We should go and tell them about Jesus. And my thing is, it would take too long to get to one person at a time. So we used to go to like OSU, to Ohio State, and we would like, me and a couple friends, we'd go to the parties and stuff, and I'd stand up on the table and rap to people and tell them about Jesus, or just rap and stuff like that. So I was kind of used to it. So I was like, well, why don't we just go get a table, and we'll stand on a table, and we'll just grab the cone and talk to them through the cone and offer salvation. She was like, that's a great idea. And so we go find some tables. We pull out the table. She was like, all right, go ahead. And I was like, whoa, why I got to get up there? You get up there. And I don't know why I was scared to get up there, but I let her get up there, and she was trying to talk to the people, and everybody ignored her. And so I was like, all right, give me the cone. I'll get up there. And I got up there, and I tried to start talking through the cone, and everybody stopped and looked. But then I was like, wait, my name's Forte. I have to be loud.
Mm.
Excuse me, everyone. And I give like a 3-minute salvation message. And about 400 or 350 or so people raised their hands to receive salvation.
Okay.
And some of my friends that were there from the Bible college and some from the church had salvation cards. And this is how we know how many people it was, because they took the salvation cards through the crowd. Everybody just fell in and just started doing stuff. So as soon as I get off the table and get down, my boy Mark comes over. He's like, yo, Steve, it was like 350 people who filled out cards for salvation, man. That was freaking amazing. So as soon as I get done, I walk back up front and I hear God's voice, the same voice that sounds like my voice in my head.
Mm-hmm.
You a big shot now? Are you famous? You a big shot because you just like preached to 1,000 people and 350 of them got saved just now? It's like, no, sir. He said, all right, cool. Well, since you're not a big shot, go in the back, grab an apron, and help putting that food together and start serving the people. So I went back there, packed stuff up, start serving the people.
Nice. So I can't say necessarily I done that, but yeah, that's awesome. So
It was fun. All of it.
So you've kind of like had this really amazing journey and experience, with God. So what are, like, where are you at now? What are some of the aspirations that you have? What do you have a vision for the future? Just things that you're involved in currently. What are some of those things that you're doing? Currently, I know that you're heavily involved at the church that you're at, and you're doing things there. Are you still working with the young people?
Yes.
What is, like, all right, so what's in store for Steve Forte?
So right now, what I'm doing, like you said, I'm currently serving at the church. No pay involved. I have a regular job, and so I have a bunch of young people.
You're earning your Jesus bucks. That's what I call it. You're earning your Jesus bucks.
I think Jesus gave me the bucks when I got in the beginning, when he like did all that crazy stuff for me. Like, I'm paying it all back now.
Okay.
But yeah, so I got a few young people. We do the media, and so I get to teach them about media and stuff like that, and allow them to see like this life lived out by a man of God who's not like their dad or their grandparent or somebody that's, I mean, I'm getting older, but as somebody that's not super old, that they have to look up like, oh man, church is just for old people, or Jesus is just for old people. Like, I want to always be an example of how God was to me,
Yeah.
And so
any plans musically? Are you doing things musically at the moment, or are you just kind of?
No, I kind of stepped away from the music. I did set up a studio like to do some music, but I haven't really done it yet. Some of the guys from the church, they want to do some stuff, ask me to do verses, and a lot of times the creativity's not there. I feel like I use a lot of creativity when it comes to the media stuff.
Gotcha.
So when it comes time to write a song, unless I can just freestyle it, it's like, yeah, I have nothing. Unfortunately. I think maybe I will do something with music, but it may not necessarily be me doing it. Like, it'll be more so behind the scenes, helping other artists, like shooting music videos or directing music videos, and putting, like, doing more artist development stuff.
Okay. So any plans then for the future? Do you have anything in store that, that you're like, hey, I kind of see myself going down this path, or?
Yeah, I'm still toying with the idea of pastoring.
Okay.
like, and trying to see how that would look. So one of the things that I've started doing was getting with a few pastors that I know that have done it,
Mm-hmm.
and like having conversations with them about the steps that they took in doing it, the challenges that they had, like in pastoring 100, 500, 1,000 people,
Mm-hmm.
2,000 or 1,500 people, and just the systems that they had set up, and like trying to figure out, all right, like how can I do it? If I do it, how can I do it, like in the like on the ground, like
Right.
from ground level, and build it,
Yeah.
but then take what I know through media as well and help to expand it as well.
Yeah.
Because like I don't think there's any reason not to make Jesus's name as big and as great as possible. That's why I do media now. Like, because I mean, why not tell people about Jesus?
Sure. Especially the experiences that that you've had and that you've gone through, and the journey that God has taken you. You definitely want to be able to kind of share that with people. And
Yeah, I've never shared those stories with people. Like, not like this. Like, I've shared maybe one of them, but not that that storyline that I just shared today.
yeah, and we didn't even we didn't really talk about, we didn't really get into to that, and just so that you guys know that that was strictly like authentic, genuine, sincere from the heart. It wasn't like
Yeah.
I just said, hey man, I just want you to talk about your your faith journey, and kind of discuss that, because of my relationship with you, and I've known the things that you've come from. I really felt like it would be a benefit
Hmm.
to people, anybody that would be watching or listening.
Right.
I think it would really help inspire them and encourage them, because I think there's different, there's different personalities and characteristics about different people that resonate with people a little bit more. And it really kind of helps inspire them in a lot of ways. And, the goal here is to really inspire, motivate, and connect people to Jesus. Like
Right.
that's really kind of like the focus. That's the desire that I have, is to really kind of help people, in their journeys,
Yeah.
really find God for them in their own, their own relationship, and not through someone else's relationship, and through really through the word, and in the aspect of that they're really grasping what the Bible says, its intent and its context, not just what someone else is trying to do to hype them up and profit from them. So that is definitely the desire. And I'm trying to connect people that are artistic, that are creative,
Hmm.
that kind of have like this multifunctional aspect about them. And you're definitely like one of those people that have that. You're just obviously, my passions and your passions are the same but slightly different, and
Yeah.
that's totally okay. So yeah, so with that, man, like I guess if anybody wants to connect with you, find you, you're on what, Instagram,
Instagram,
Facebook,
Facebook,
TikTok,
TikTok, Twitter.
Twitter,
My Twitter fingers are strong.
aka X. I'll give it
Oh
to you.
yeah, it's X now.
So I guess it's what, at Steve Forte.
Yeah, at Stephen Forte, at Forte Pics. It's just look up Stephen Forte. You'll find me somewhere.
Yeah. So thank you again, man, for this time, and thank you for really sharing your heart, your journey, and I'm sure it definitely is going to inspire, and really really kind of help people,
Hmm.
with their journey. So
I hope so,
thank
man.
you.
I hope so, because my dad used to tell me that like when I used to get done praying, I'd be so excited because I heard something from God, or
Mm.
I was trying to hear something from God, and he'd always tell me, Stephen, you don't have to tell everybody everything. You don't always have to tell people that you heard from God about stuff. And so I think that caused me to dial back a lot of times. That God said da 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 da. You know.
Yeah, which I understand because
Me too.
I've definitely been in environments and circles where they've used the position in the pulpit um, to kind of exercise certain things a certain way,
Yeah.
and it's I get it because
And
it's
I've
like
seen that too, and that's why I purposely don't do that. Like, nah, I'm not. Nah, if I say it and you don't feel it, like, and I'll tell you my experience. I'm not telling you what God is telling you. I'll tell you
right,
my experience, and
right,
if you don't believe it, okay, I'm fine with that. Like,
yeah.
I know what God did for me, though.
Then go and experience it for yourself.
Exactly.
And yeah, so that's maybe something we can discuss like at another
Oh
time
yeah.
for sure, is because, that's definitely something me personally, um, I'm always trying to be mindful of because I think people need to hear God for themselves.
Yeah.
And it means, just like you shared, it means so much more when you hear it for yourself,
Hmm.
not what someone else necessarily was saying.
Exactly.
So I think there's definitely a difference between a personal relationship, your very own personal relationship, and then trying to live through someone else's relationship. So yeah, that's definitely something that we can always touch upon at another time.
Yeah.
So thanks, bro, for your friendship and just always being there for me in my challenging moments and times. So I definitely appreciate it, and I look forward to seeing the next iteration, the next phase of the journey that God has for you, and wherever He takes you, whatever I could do to help you. I'm definitely here because I want to be
Of
a
course.
part of that.
Right.
So, all right, cool. Well, I really hope that you guys enjoyed this time. And yeah, if there's anything that we can do here at Morning Joe Devo to help you, please let us know. If you found this information and this experience valuable, please hit the like button. If you want, subscribe, hit the subscribe button, and leave some comments in maybe your own experience. Just share briefly about, maybe what God has taken you through and your faith journey. So, as always, I'm Mark Heyer, and that was Steve Forte.
Thank y'all. And
And
thank you,
this
Mark.
is, you're welcome, bro. You're welcome. This is Morning Joe Devo. The beacon to inspire, motivate, and connect you to Jesus. So next time, peace.